can you keep all four of them? Tavares, Nylander, Marner, and Matthews. Does the salary structure allow you to do that?
We can and we will.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the JB Show. Today, I'm going to be talking to you, giving you a little bit of an update on the Leafs situation. Now, when I first started the podcast, my second episode was just kind of a rundown of the Leafs, how they did last season, what they're going to do next season, and I kind of want to give you guys just a bit of an update because I think some pretty big things have happened. So, first off, I want to start with another big trade. Now, at the end of last episode, I said that there was another trade that had happened that I didn't really get to last episode. So, I was saving it for this one. So, the Carolina Hurricanes acquired Patrick Marleau, a 2020 conditional first-round pick, and a 2020 7th-round pick in exchange for, and they gave up their 6th-round pick for the 2020 draft. Now, at first glance, anyone's like, oh, that's a tough one. You have to give up a first-round pick to gain cap space. A first-round pick is a lot. Now, let me remind you, Patrick Marleau last year had 37 points with 16 goals. Now, for someone who's 39 years old, turning 40, I wouldn't really complain about that. But when you're making $6.25 million against the cap on a team that, as I've mentioned multiple times before, are tight against the cap, this was one of two moves that I thought were absolutely necessary. And for the people complaining about the first round pick, there's one thing I'd have to say. It's that we're in the cap space era, right? Everyone needs cap space. Look at what the New Jersey Devils just did. They gave up an elite defenseman and got pennies to the dollar in return because why? They needed cap space to go get Matt Duchene, or hopefully get Matt Duchene. Now, it's not the same scenario, but they needed to give up Patrick Marleau so that they can bring back Mitch Marner, who I'll get to later, Andreas Johnsson, and Kasperi Kapanen. That's just the start. Next year, they also have to sign Travis Dermott, and in the future, there's other players they have to sign. Well, will Marleau have an effect on the other players? Possibly not, because this year or next year would have been the final year of his contract. Now, I just like to bring up two names that I brought up before, in Johnsson and Kapanen. Now, it's basically been confirmed that when their contract extensions kick in, that Kapanen's AAV will come in at $3.2 million on a 3-year deal, and Johnsson's will come in at $3.4 million on a 4-year deal. So I'm not complaining about those contracts, especially because it's been said for months that, they're both going to get offer sheeted for more than $4 million or just under $4 million. And the Leafs will only get 2 second-round picks, which that alone is quite ridiculous. But I'm extremely happy that they signed those contracts. Now let's do the math. They got rid of Patrick Marleau, had to give up a first-round pick to do that, and then replaced that money with Johnsson and Kapanen, plus the $500,000 that they had to spend on both of them. So I'm really, as a Leafs fan, I'm not doing a whole lot of complaining about the money they used on these two players. I mean, it's much better than what happened in Edmonton when Connor McDavid took 12.5 instead of 13.5, and they ended up signing Milan Lucic and Chris Russell. So I'm impressed with Kyle Dubas. Now, he has one more move to make before either bringing in or trading out Mitch Marner. Now, I'm going to get to Mitch Marner later because that's a whole discussion on its own. Now, Nikita Zaitsev, currently making $4.5 million, just finished the second year of his contract extension, and will be getting paid, or will get a cap hit of 4.5 for the next 5 years. Now, let me remind you that this was signed in 2017 when Lou Lamoriello was still general manager. While he hasn't panned out with the Leafs, I think that a team like Vancouver, like Edmonton, maybe not necessarily a rebuilding team, but someone who's looking to put in the top, who's looking for a defenseman in the top 4 position, could easily place Nikita Zaitsev at a 4, and I think they'd be quite happy. The thing with Nikita Zaitsev is it's not that he's an awful player. It's that he's not being used. I don't think he's being used properly. In his first season, he had 4 goals, 32 assists, and 36 points. Now, that was on the team that lost to the Washington Capitals that year. Now, he did finish with a minus 22, but he did play quite a bit of power play time that year. And I think whether he plays the power play or not, he's not a stay-at-home defender. And for the majority of this season, he played with Jake Gardiner. Now, Jake Gardiner is also not a stay-at-home defender. He likes to bring the puck up. He likes to move the puck around a little bit. You're not going to see Jake Gardiner staying back. Now, when you have 2 players like that, what's going to happen is one of them's going to have to stay back. And in this case, it turned out to be Nikita Zaitsev. Why? Because, to be honest, Jake Gardiner is a better offensive defenseman than Nikita Zaitsev. I think that's fair to say. Now, what happens when you put a player in an uncomfortable position? Do they do well, or do they do poorly? And in most cases, unless you're a superstar, you're not going to do as well as you could. And that's exactly what happened. He's had to play as a stay-at-home defender. He was not able to move the puck up like Jake Gardiner, or at the same time as Jake Gardiner, because who was controlling the puck most of the time? Jake Gardiner. On any other pairing, let's see, Jake Muzzin. He played with Jake Muzzin in the playoffs, and towards the end of the season when Gardiner got injured. And it was the same scenario. And I would say I don't even consider Jake Muzzin a puck-moving defenseman. I'd rather see him as a stay-at-home. But he played splendid. He played spectacular as a puck-moving defenseman, so I'm not going to complain about that. But he's making $4.5 million. And we know that Mike Babcock is not a big guy who changes what he wants to do. He had William Nylander play center on the third line for the entire playoffs, or for once Kadri got injured, suspended. Now, why? Patrick Marleau can play center. That's hasn't been disputed. Now, is he a good center? Maybe not, but I'd rather stack the top 2 lines, and I've said this before. Have Tavares and Marner together. Have Matthews and Nylander together. And we've seen it in at least last year and the year before, that when Matthews and Nylander are clicking and are on the same line, they are outstanding. I have 0 complaints with that line. When you put a predominantly winger on at a center, it's really not the same position. And you saw that some would say that Nylander did not look like he was playing for the team out there. He was kind of slow. He wasn't really moving a lot. It's not the same position. And I obviously, yes, I am not saying he should not take the blame or part of the blame for that. I don't know how to call it other than horrendous loss against the Boston Bruins in the first round. But I'm also going to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. He was not in a comfortable position, and that, like, he should not. I can't stress it enough that next season, if he is not playing with Austin Matthews, I really don't know what Mike Babcock is doing. Unless he pulls off a miracle, I am very much confused as what to what William Nylander is doing. Now, let me get back to Nikita Zaitsev before I go on a rant that I don't want to go on again. Zaitsev, not essential, but because our right side is very much depleted, depth wise. Even in the Marlies, it's not as strong. The Leafs need to bring in another right shot defenseman. And that's kind of going to lead me to my next point about Mitch Marner. As in, is Mitch Marner going to get traded? Now, I might find that hard to believe. Mitch Marner, homegrown boy, going to get traded from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Why? Because two reasons. He wants a boatload of money, and we need a top defenseman, top right shot defenseman. But I'm going to be clear. It's mainly because he wants a boatload of money. Now, let me be clear. It's not that he's not worth all this money, but he's asking for money that he's pushing it. He was offered 8 years at $10 million. And I don't see a problem with this. I really don't. Mark Stone signed an 8-year contract extension with the Golden Knights when he was traded from the Senators at $9.5 million. And I'm going to be honest. Number one, Mark Stone is a much better defensive forward than Marner. Maybe his offense maybe no. He doesn't put up as many points. He's not as influential in that area, but I think he is the best my opinion, he is probably the best defensive winger in the league. I cannot think of anyone who plays on the wing. Let me be clear, plays on the wing. Who's a better defensive forward than Mark Stone. Now, Mitch Marner, on the other hand, he wants money closer to Austin Matthews. And I've given my reasons before. I'm going to summarize them again. Why Mitch Marner is not worth Austin Matthews' money. Number one, I think Austin Matthews is a better player than Mitch Marner. Number two, Austin Matthews is a center in the NHL. And it's been pretty much clear that centers predominantly get paid more than wingers in the league. It's out there. Even if they're the same skill level, centers get paid more. Why? They're centers. I don't have a good explanation for you. There are definitely explanations that you can find. I don't have a good one for you. Number three, what does Austin Matthews do best? He scores goals. Now, I'm not discrediting Marner at what he does. Marner is a great playmaker. He sets up the play. He fixes. If the play goes wrong, he can fix that play. But in the NHL, goal scorers always get paid, no matter what. It's just seeing Patrick Kane, Crosby, McDavid. I don't have to go through the names. It's quite obvious that goal scorers get paid. Now, playmakers get paid too, but not as much as the goal scorers who are at the same skill level as them. So Mitch Marner is a restricted free agent, which means that there's two ways for another team to get Mitch Marner. One way, a trade. Now, what are the Leafs going to be looking for in a trade? Or what I think is that they're going to be looking for a top defenseman, definitely right shot, or at minimum, someone who can play on the right side. And a winger, to bring up a winger, a prospect, and some draft picks. I don't see why anyone would see that as a problem. Now, how many defensemen are out there that play the right side do I think would be a good fit on this team? Now, I'm looking at two players, or a couple at least. I'm gonna start with the Colorado Avalanche. Tyson Barrie. Yes, Tyson Barrie, he's right-handed. I would say he's a top 2 defenseman. I think he could slot into this team right beside Morgan Rielly. Now here's my one worry. He has 1 year left at $5.5 million. Will he re-sign in Toronto? I don't know if that's a must. I think it should be. Many say the cup run for this team is now. I would agree, but at the same time I disagree. The cup run is for this team is now and for the future. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Morgan Rielly, those guys are young. The core of this team is young. Okay, the Nazem Kadris will come and go. Not the contract, but the type of players, they will come and go. But I'd like to see this team, pick up a nice defender who's got maybe some term. 1 year is a little low for me. Now, I'm going to move over to the Minnesota Wild, who have a couple players that interest me. One is Jared Spurgeon, who is also on a 1 year deal at $5.1 million. But a player who interests me more would be Matt Dumba. Would the Wild be willing to give him up? Maybe. If the return was Mitch Marner and all they had to give up was Dumba plus a winger and a pick, I think I would take that deal. But I'm not the Wild. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if they're planning a rebuild. I don't know what their plan is. Now, there's another option, offer sheets. And this is a big one for Mitch Marner because any offer sheet would be huge for Mitch Marner, for the Leafs. Now, I'm going to be honest. Marner's offer sheet, if it's above 10.5, which is the cutoff for four first-round picks, the Leafs should not match it. Personally, I do not think the Leafs should match it. Now, why? Depending on the team that Marner accepts his offer, they're probably going to be a mid-tier team, a team that can hold that salary, and it's just quite difficult to take in at least 10.5. So I think those 4 first-round picks are much more valuable together than Mitch Marner. And I'm going to explain why. Because the Leafs, over the last few seasons, look at who the Leafs have taken. They've taken players, maybe they're smaller, but they're going to be NHLers. The scouting staff is much smarter than before. We're not taking Frederick Gauthier. We're not taking Tyler Biggs. Yes, okay, before they got Nazem Kadri, Morgan Rielly, but we're picking smarter players. This isn't about being 6'6", 220 pounds, and slamming a guy into the boards. Kyle Dubas and his scouting staff are creating a team that is small. Okay, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe that's a good thing. It depends on who you ask. Nimble and skillful. The most important thing moving forward in this league is that the players you have are skillful. And that is exactly how the Leafs are picking. Look at who they picked. Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Austin Matthews, I don't have to continue. I think those three are enough. Timothy Liljegren, Rasmus Sandin, two players right there could be up next season. With the Dermot injury, it's very likely. So I know that with the right scouting, the team could pick players who are outstanding. And let me remind you that those 4 first-round picks in any way, any combination, could be used as trade chips for, let's say, a right defenseman, a right-handed defenseman, a winger, anyone they need. Now they have extra first-round picks. So that's one thing. And there's a couple other things I want to bring up before I leave, is that Darren Ferris, Marner's agent, has dealt with this before. He has had 2 major holdouts. One for Blue Jackets player Josh Anderson, who held out and ended up getting $1.85 million on an AAV in 2017 on a 3-way contract. And it was reported that the contract that Anderson agreed to was the same contract that the Blue Jackets had offered him months ago. So we could be sitting here right now in a few months, and I could be telling you that Mitch Marner has signed the same deal that Brian Burke reported that was offered to him last week. Now, the same thing happened to Andreas Athanasiou, who ended up signing a 1-year contract with the Detroit Red Wings at about $1.5 million. What I'm saying is that Darren Ferris and his clients have this isn't the first time that this has happened. But let's not worry, because we could be talking about that Mitch Marner signing a very team-friendly deal, but I don't think Darren Ferris has ever dealt with a player, or with the crop of players he is dealing with now. He's not dealing with a player like Mitch Marner. Marner is, I think, a superstar in this league. If you don't think he's a superstar now, you will, in a couple of years, you will definitely agree that Mitch Marner is a superstar. Now, it's been reported by Darren Dreger of TSN that 3 teams will be meeting with Marner for sure, and maybe a 4th. The RFA the meeting window starts tomorrow, or June 26th, and goes until July 1st. And at that point, Mitch Marner can sign a offer sheet with anyone, his choice. Now, there's a couple things that I want to bring up. I think that Mitch Marner, money-wise, will make the most in Toronto. Maybe it won't hit the cap the same, but there's a couple things. Or one big thing. Advertisements. Mitch Marner is a homegrown boy. Grew up in Toronto, cheered for the Leafs, probably wore his Toronto Maple Leafs PJs just like JT in that John Tavares in that picture. He will get so much money in advertising. He already does. And he will continue to make that money. But if he leaves Toronto, I cannot see him making that same money in a place like New York or in a place like wherever else he's meeting with. I just thought New York would be an option. Maybe the Islanders, since they have quite a bit of cap space. Any team with cap space that's going to meet with Marner, I don't think can offer him that same advertisement money that he'd get in Toronto. Now, cap-wise, yes, I definitely agree that Marner will not get the most in Toronto. I can guarantee you teams are going to be offering $12 million, $13 million, maybe, I don't know. Maybe $13 million is a bit of a stretch, but they're going to be offering him good money to come to their team. But I don't think that those cities will give him the same advertisement opportunities that he will get in Toronto, because he's a because he's a homegrown boy. Now, if I'm Kyle Dubas and it's June 30th and I'm not too sure if Marner's resigning, it doesn't seem likely. He'll probably accept an offer sheet. I'm on the phone coming up with trades. I'm on the phone. I mean, he's probably right now. I would not be surprised if Kyle Dubas is making calls to some teams and seeing what he could get for Mitch Marner. He's a great GM, and I'm very sure he's doing that. Now, back to my point. If he gets to that point, June 30th, he doesn't know, clock's ticking, I just say trade him. Get Mitch Marner out of here. Not because I don't love him, but I think the assets that he'll get back, defense-wise, any type of winger that he'll get, any picks, will help the team more now, right? We're in a winning mode now, rather than those 4 first-round picks that he'll get from an offer sheet. Sure, the picks will help in the future, but like I said earlier, the team's winning period is now, and they need to get as much help on defense because that's where they struggle most. Now, I don't agree with the idea. I agree with the idea that you don't take away from your strengths to build up a weakness, because you're going to end up getting to a point where your strength isn't really your strength anymore. If you trade Nazem Kadri for a third-line center, an actual third-line center, where did your strength go? It disappeared. Now, if we know Mitch Marner, there's a chance he's going to sign anything he wants that's above 10.5, I am not going for. Take the first round picks. Take the 4 first round picks. If after July 1st he decides, you know what, I don't want to sign in Toronto, take the first 4 round picks, the 4 first round picks, Kyle Dubas. That's my suggestion. But do not, I repeat, do not sign Mitch Marner to a 5-year contract. Why? Okay. William Nylander, contract ends. 5 years. Austin Matthews' contract will end in 5 years. So that's already bad enough that you have to sign 2, by that time, an elite player and an NHL superstar. And then, now we're going to add Mitch Marner to that. It was already difficult enough to deal with William Nylander in 1 year and Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner in another. I can't imagine the difficulty Kyle Dubas will have, if he's still here, which I presume he is, the difficulty he'll have re-signing all 3 players. Not to mention that he has other things to deal with. By that time, who knows? Other people will be out of contracts. Dermott might be out of a contract by then. What if they pick a player, ends up being a superstar? Now he's out of a contract. Those are hypotheticals. But the 3 alone, those 3 superstars are the core of this team out of a contract in 1 year. I can't imagine, number 1, the pressure. Number 2, what if he loses 2? Oh my God, if he loses 3, the city will riot. 1, I can understand. 2, that's really pushing it. Now 3, that is absolutely unacceptable. I think Marner wants to be a Leaf. I find it hard to believe that he would not want to play in Toronto. With the culture that they've created now. This isn't the early 2010, late 2000s Leafs. The culture has changed. It's not, I can come to Toronto, make money, and be laid back. That's not how it works anymore. Work hard, you'll get the respect, you get the credit that you deserve. And that is happening now. But I'm sorry, Mitch Marner is not an $11 million player, $11.5 million player, a $12 million player. I think He's anywhere between 9.5 and 10. I may give you a comparable. And yes, I know this player took a discount, but he signed the contract he did. Nikita Kucherov is going to be making $9.5 million in cap hit. Now, okay, we're going to include somewhere in between inflation and salary cap increase. You're going to hit somewhere probably closer to 10 from when he signed that contract. Now, if he signed that contract, cap hit percentage, it's somewhere around $10 million, just under $10 million. And that's exactly where I think he can hit. Do I think he's a better player than Nikita Kucherov? No. But I know that Nikita Kucherov signed a deal that is under market value. And, okay, give Mitch Marner the benefit of the doubt. Why don't you sign the same cap hit percentage? But no, that's not going to happen. He's going to sign something over that. So, there's multiple options that Kyle Dubas has. And he has a very tough decision to make. Does he trade Mitch Marner? Does he let Mitch Marner get offer sheeted and either match it or take the compensation, which will be a nice compensation? Or does he somehow sign Mitch Marner? And it better be to a nice deal, because I know that after the Nylander deal, not too many fans are happy. After the Matthews deal, some more fans aren't happy. Personally, I'm very happy with the job that Kyle Dubas has done over the last just over a year. Bringing in JT, signing Matthews to, I think, a good contract. William Nylander to, I think, a market value contract, especially for what he's going to be doing. Hopefully playing with Austin Matthews. I don't know what Coach Mike Babcock wants to do, but I hope that he plays with Austin Matthews. So when Mitch Marner signs his next contract, whether it be with the Leafs, whether it be with another team, I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to tell you what I think of the contract. Too high? And maybe I'll just say that he got underpaid. But I highly doubt that. Thank you for listening to another episode of the JB Show. See you next time.